For the last year, we've been building not one, but two tiny house cabins right here on the shores of Lake Erie. Last week, we installed a sink at cabin number 2 and began working on the tile grout on our own kitchen backsplash. This was one of those projects that frustrated the crap out of me while I was in the middle of it. Put it down, walk away for a day or two, come back, and today I'm like, yeah! Every time we think we see the light at the end of the tunnel, somebody either turns it off or moves that finish line back another 100 yards. That's okay, we'll keep running towards it and jump those hurdles as they come. A little bit of a different video for you today. Let's take a trip down memory lane. Good morning, can I have a large cappuccino and a large green tea black? No, thank you.
Okay, come on, honey.
Okay, morning. Of course.
Have a great day.
Thanks, you too. What's up, Codebreakers? Happy Friday Eve. It is a beautiful Thursday down here at Canada's most southern mainland shoreline. You know, I've really been reflecting a lot recently on my time in education.
I am on a mission. I am on a mission to hack my classroom, your classroom, and every classroom across the globe.
How it sort of was abruptly came to a halt, a variety of factors, pandemic, and that's a story for another day, or maybe it'll come out in this video, I haven't a clue. But my exit from the classroom to sort of teaching online myself, from teaching with pencils to teaching with pixels.
I am on a mission to expose as many kids to coding and computer science as I can.
For a lot of you that don't know, I have spoken all over the world.
But before we can truly implement it, we have to hack a few criteria of our education system.
About education, in particular, the importance of computer science education. A lot of that started for me about 5 years into my teaching career, around 2010.
And I know this is overwhelming, and I know this is intimidating, but we have to remember it's not about us. We need to stop trying to make kids conform to our world, but instead embrace theirs. Thank you.
As you can imagine, a global pandemic is enough to shut down anybody's speaking career. And coming out of the pandemic, it just seemed like, STEM and computer science are still incredibly important. But coming out of the pandemic, they were no longer my own priority. We just passed the 5-year anniversary of George Floyd's passing. I think it was May 25th, 2020. And again, while coding and computer science and teaching kids to think like technology is incredibly important, we currently live in a time where empathy and kindness seem to trump everything else. See what I did there? The water installation at garage house number 2 continuously being postponed has got me thinking about the things in my life that I have been able to control. 5 years after the pandemic, my inbox is slowly starting to blow up with speaking opportunities again. But here's what's really cool about this. It's no longer, hey Brian, will you come and speak about the history and the importance of computer science education for all? It's become, Brian, can you come and speak about how you've built a publishing brand and published 50 plus content creators and other educators, amplifying their message further across this globe? Because that's what our young people need to hear. And that is incredibly rewarding and incredibly fulfilling. I was just invited to speak at a really big 20th anniversary conference in New Brunswick. In August, a 20-year tech conference that started in 2005 by a handful of educators that got together and decided they wanted to do more and be better for kids everywhere. And that little road conference with a handful of folks 20 years later has blown up into a massive event, and they're flying me across the country to talk about my journey in the education space and amplifying the stories of others. And speaking of amplifying the stories of others, if you're new around here, our next big book project comes from Unlearn 16, Joanna Johnson.
We also have a problem where kids aren't allowed to fail. What? There's 2 reasons you fail. You don't get it yet. So if we stop shaming everybody and we stop actually setting the bar so low so nobody ever fails, we would be very much aware that not every student is going to pass every class. So I'll tell you all we're doing by passing them, especially in elementary years, is you're making them hate school and feel stupid. That's it. But the reality is somebody made them feel not powerful enough and then just pushed them through when they didn't get it. Because the second thing is they didn't try. Well, I'm not handing out things for you not trying. That's ridiculous. Kids, adults, everybody needs to be aware I need to get it and I need to try.
She has 3.5 million followers on TikTok. She's a school leader from the Toronto area. We connected about 8 or so months ago to work on a project to write her book, tell her memoir about her experience in education and her leadership journey as a school leader. And wouldn't you know, in recent time, in the last week and a half, I got an invitation from the Toronto District School Board. That's Canada's biggest publicly funded school board across the country. We were invited, myself and Joanna were invited to speak at a 2-day principals conference for the Toronto District School Board, 700 school administrators this coming December. And of course, the gig isn't guaranteed. We were asked to apply, but I've been in this business long enough to know there are only a handful of us they asked to apply. They wanted to know what we'll speak about, and of course, what our fee would be. And it's really got me thinking about airplanes. I hate drywall, but I loved drywall 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I loved airplanes, and then I hated airplanes. Look, everything in life is a pendulum swing, left and right and back and forth, and I guess over a lifetime, you end up somewhere in the middle, where you are supposed to be. There was a time in my life where I thought school leadership was my destiny. I would speak and consult all over Canada and the United States. I latched on to Microsoft about 6 or 7 years ago. They invited me to Budapest to speak about Minecraft and education. I even wrote a book about Minecraft and game-based learning in education. And I gotta say, when I left education, I was done with it. I was done with the headaches. I was done with the politics. I was done with the ego. I was done with it all. But now, 5 years later, my inbox is blowing up with speaking opportunities again. And I love that. And it's got me thinking about potentially re-entering that space. I agreed to go to New Brunswick. It's my first speaking gig in, oh gosh, probably 6-8 months. I've been turning them all down. But as these deadlines and finish lines and water installations and drywall stuff at these cabins keep getting pushed back, I think about the finish line is in sight, but every time I sprint towards it, they move it back another 100 meters. Well, there's a lesson in there, and it's about resilience. It's about grit. It's about teaching our young people to chase greatness and face adversity head on, to not be afraid of failure, but to celebrate it. Not that like, oh, that didn't work, good for us, but to at least look at the opportunity to try something that goes awry, to reflect on what happened, and to go about trying again. See, the thing about education is we've been so focused on grades. What did I get? What did I get? That kids don't bother to say, what did I learn? Or what are we learning? And as long as we have those grades in the way of learning, there's too much risk in not getting the grade. We preach taking risks in school and learning new things, but nobody wants to take a risk in a system in which failure is punished, not celebrated. Language arts was always my poorest subject as a student. I remember getting C's in writing as far back as second grade. I remember my first year of grad school. I got a Master's of Math Education from Western University in Ontario. A prof took me aside and said, you're going to want to take courses on MLA or APA or whatever those essay styles are. And I said, why? And they said, your academic writing isn't, good enough for a master's degree. Even though the program was a Master's of Math Education, my writing played a factor in how well or how poorly I did. So I pushed back a little bit. And I said, instead of writing all these essays, could I create content that other educators are going to use? And long story short, the faculty agreed. So I took my own skill set of coding and computer science and I applied it to building a web resource that curated all of the research information we had been learning about at the faculty. Point of my story is find what you are good at, leverage your strengths, figure out a way to monetize it. If you need to put things down for a while, go ahead and do that. I left education formally thinking I would be an informal educator for the rest of my life, and here I am slowly being pulled back into that system. There's a big part of me that yearns for that stage, those people clapping and cheering in agreement, nodding along with your beliefs about education. There's something validating about that. That's why people like me create YouTube content. So whether we get the Toronto District School Board gig or not, I know Jo Johnson was just in Calgary speaking at the Inclusive Education Conference. She's speaking this weekend in Port Elgin, Ontario at their big Unifor Pride Conference. I'm heading to Fredericton, New Brunswick in a few weeks, so things are coming back on the speaking front in the Codebreaker land. And I'm genuinely really excited for it. It means I can bring you along for these new adventures, or I guess these old adventures that are coming back again in 2025. Anyway, guys, control what you can control. Don't dwell on the things you can't. If the finish line keeps moving, just keep running towards it. If you have to think about a little detour for a while, it's okay to do that too. I always said as a classroom educator, if we want our young people to do their best, the adults in the room need to be at our best. Well, that's it for me. Quick update for you today. I've missed this. It's been a long time coming. We'll get back to the tiny house projects in the coming days. I've got to cut a hole for the kitchen countertop. We've got to finish the silicone around the post. We've got to paint behind the cabinets. One of the upper cabinets is brown. We're waiting on the water installation, which is supposed to be, I'm just going to stop saying it until you see a video that says the water's coming, because they just keep moving that finish line down and down and down and down. It's like when students ask for an extension on their work. Do we give it or do we say no? That's a hard deadline carved in stone. Deadlines move all the time in the real world. But I also recognize the importance of teaching accountability and having things done on time. Anyway, that's enough rambling for me this morning. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. Peace and love from Canada's most southern mainland shoreline. Give somebody close to you, tell them they matter. Don't forget you matter. If you're still here, hit the like button, leave us a comment down below, subscribe, tweet this at your grandma. Catch y'all on the next one.